Hey there folks, my name is Alex. I am one half of the Slow Roamer team. My wife Meg is in the van working right now and she will be joining us shortly. You may or may not know by now, but we are currently in the midst of a 30,000 or 19,000 mile trip from the northern tip of North America to the southern tip of South America on a road called the Pan American Highway. This trip is going to take us roughly a year and a half to 2 years to complete, and takes a monumental amount of preparation and thinking and planning. Today's video is going to be an informational video about how we have prepared for our Pan American trip. I know there's probably some of you out there watching this video right now that are either dreaming about doing this trip or currently preparing to do this trip. We've had a few friends do the Pan American Highway already, and they have passed on valuable information to us, and we figured it might be good for us to pass on information to you on how to prepare. I will be putting chapters in this video, so if there's something that you already know, you can skip ahead to what you want to know. And hopefully we have some helpful information for you. I'll be starting off the video with an informational section on how we've prepared the van, and then midway through the video, Megan will join us and we'll talk a little bit about the documentation and a little bit more of the admin stuff that is required to do such a large journey. Okay, let's get after this. So starting out on the vehicle portion of preparation, we're gonna start with tires. Now, before I go on any further, I'll let you guys know that this video is brought to you in part by Firestone tires. We are sponsored by them, and we chose the Destination MT2. It's a mud terrain tire, really tough, big, huge lugs. We chose this tire because we like to get into really remote areas, and because we're driving a two-wheel drive van, a mud terrain tire that's really tough and has really big lugs kind of serves us really well. It's certainly not a requirement for the Pan American Highway. Just if you like to go off-roading, maybe it's a good idea for you. Starting the Pan American Highway with a brand new set of tires, I think, is something that will really serve the travelers doing so. Not having to replace your tires midway through the journey is just one less thing to think about. Of course, as you get closer to the equator and temperatures start to increase, roads get hotter and tires get hotter, and the wear on your tire starts to increase. You can see a significant amount of wear and tear happen on your tires just going from Guatemala to Colombia. So this is not to say that it is an absolute requirement. It's just something that we have done to prepare our van to drive 30,000 kilometers down to the southern tip of South America. And I think it's a really great idea, and I thought I'd just pass that information on. Okay, the next area of preparation I want to dive into is the suspension. Now, I have talked at length in other videos about the upgrades that we have done to the suspension on the van, so I'm not going to dive into that, but I do want to just talk about suspension in general. If you think about it, between your tires and your suspension, these are the two highest abuse, highest wear areas on your vehicle. So really, they demand a lot of your attention and thought. They are responsible for taking everything from the road, softening it up, and making it nice and comfortable in your vehicle for you. And your suspension is also responsible for keeping you stable and safe on the road. For this trip, we have prepared by basically replacing the entire front end. Now, that's pretty extreme. It's not something that is totally necessary, but for us, I wanted the peace of mind that I know that everything in the front end is new. That means we have replaced upper and lower control arms, upper and lower ball joints on both sides, inner and outer tie rods on both sides, wheel bearings on both sides, as well as pitman arm and idler arm and sway bar bushings. The front end of this vehicle is very, very tight, very responsive, and very smooth. And I know that it will continue to serve us all the way to Ushuaia, Argentina. At the very least, I would suggest bringing your vehicle into a mechanic and getting them to look at the front end, make sure everything's tight and that you're not going to see any kind of premature wear on ball joints or tie rods or anything like that. As well, having everything tight, especially in the alignment area of your suspension, will reduce the amount of tire wear that you see on a trip as big as the Pan American Highway. As a caveat to your suspension, I would highly recommend getting your brakes checked, because they're kind of responsible for stopping you and keeping you alive. We've heard from multiple people, our friends included, that carrying with you an additional set or two of brake pads is required for the Pan American Highway, simply because grades get really extreme in the mountains of Mexico, Guatemala, the Andes. Again, just having those parts available so they can quickly be switched out when you wear through them is really important. We will be replacing all of the brakes on the van in the upcoming weeks. And I'm gonna say it so many times in this video, peace of mind. I know that everything is new and in good working order. The next thing that we're gonna talk about is engine maintenance. This is kind of a scary one for a lot of people because the engine of your vehicle is like an abyss or just like a scary place to go for a lot of people, which I totally understand. For us, we have kind of gone to the extreme level of engine maintenance. We have replaced almost all of the secondary parts in this van. We are at about 260,000 kilometers. I don't know what that is in miles, but it's basically the mileage that all of the secondary stuff on our van has started to fail. And that's totally okay. It's just the natural wear life of these smaller parts. And over the last year and a half, we have been preparing by just replacing these parts. And we have a bunch of spare sensors, gaskets, belts, those kind of things that we have in the back of the van. But we have done stuff like alternator, radiator, exhaust gasket, spark plugs, wires, new battery. I think we're going to be doing a power steering pump in the next week or so. You know, just all of these kind of things that are likely to fail at some point, especially if you have a high mileage car. And it may be totally different for you. You might be driving a brand new vehicle and you don't have to worry so much about these smaller things breaking down. But I think at the very least, to prepare, bring your vehicle into a mechanic and get a clean bill of health. Address the bigger problems while you are in the country of your origin. Shipping anything down south can be a bit of a challenge, and it gets really expensive with taxes and stuff like that. And again, I will repeat myself and say that peace of mind, just knowing that you have a vehicle that most of the parts are new or working properly on it, just allows you to enjoy your time while you're on the road. So on the back of the van, we have this toolbox. It is full of recovery gear and fluids. Up here, we have, you know, just basic stuff like WD-40, brake clean. We have spare gear oil, engine oil, coolant, power steering fluid, brake fluid, anything that we might need to deal with an issue on our vehicle when we're out in remote locations. As well, I have a grease gun with me just so that I can grease my U-joints and all of my suspension parts up front. And I keep it outside so that none of the greasy stuff is inside the vehicle. As well, we have recovery gear. This is kind of part of the tools section that I want to talk about. Because we like to go to remote locations, we just have some basic recovery like an axe, a kinetic strap, an actual tow strap. We have a winch on the vehicle as well, and that should get us out of most sticky situations, or we can lend a hand to fellow travelers and pull them out if they're stuck or anything like that. So this is kind of just basic stuff to have. Fluids, as my grandpa used to say, are your cheapest mechanic. So keeping your fluids topped up will just increase the longevity of your engine and suspension parts and all things like that. Okay, now that we're done with the vehicle mechanical preparation portion of this video, I want to talk briefly about the tools and spares that we have put in the van to prepare us for the Pan American Highway. We do carry a lot of spares and a lot of tools with us. In this box here, I have spare inner and outer tie rods, upper and lower ball joints, tensioner pulley, and tensioner itself. As well, we have a spare unit bearing for the van. This is an AC Delco wheel bearing for the van. It's all high wear point stuff. These are the things that are most likely to wear out on, you know, a 30,000 kilometer trip. Stuff that I would just rather have with me than not. As they often say, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. In addition, we have just some old spark plugs and wires that are still in reasonable condition. I don't foresee us having that issue while we're on the Pan Am, but it's just one of those things that it's not much to carry and I might as well just have it with me. In this top box here, we just have spare nuts and bolts, hose clamps, spare wire, got some anti-seize, spare zerks, seals, and JB Weld. My friend Josh told me to bring JB Weld, the actual epoxy stuff and the putty stuff along with, just because it is so versatile. As well, we have just lots of form a gasket or like RTV, whatever you want to call it. And that's pretty much what we carry for spares. I've got some belts in the back. Yeah, I think that should more or less take care of most of the issues we're likely to run into mechanically. Now, of course, I can't really replace any of this stuff without carrying tools. I've had a few people in the past, for some reason, believe that I don't travel with tools and I have no mechanical knowledge. Well, I do travel with a lot of tools, and if you guys have been following along with us for a long period of time, you'll know that last winter we did some serious upgrades on the van, which was putting a brand new set of springs and an entirely new axle in the back of the van. We did all of that with the tools that we carry with us. So in our armory of tools, I've got a like 120 or 200 piece socket set. We've got a small selection of power tools, battery operated of course, so I can charge batteries while we drive. Got a grinder, a fairly sizable Ugga-Dugga. I think this does 225 foot-pounds, and just a basic impact drill that you can put drill bits or screw bits into this. And then in this box, we have my wrench roll with breaker bar and a few screwdrivers and stuff like that. But a combination wrench set with more or less all of the combination wrench sizes that I need. We've got just a big old selection of pliers, a nice big adjustable hammer here. I've got a smaller pry bar, a little 5-pound hammer, smack dab hammer, whatever you want to call it. A couple different sets of vice grips, Allen wrenches, tools to sharpen my chainsaw in here, pin bars, 3-foot pry bar, 3-foot breaker bar, and as well, we've got a 4-ton scissor jack, I believe. I've got a lot of heat on the internet for using this, but honestly, it's the most compact, lightweight jack that I can use and carry with us. We can't use a high lift jack, which has been suggested to us because we have no jacking points. We don't have any sliders on the van, and the bumpers are a little bit too high and angled. They don't have any jack points. So this has been a really good friend. I put a nut on the end of it so I can just bring it up with my impact gun, and it goes up and down super fast, and it has served me really well. And I'm really, really happy with this. And yes, I know it's a little bit of a death trap. And last but not least, we have a nice big dual piston compressor here. We call airing down the tires putting the van in 4-wheel drive because we get so much more traction. And we do it a lot, especially when we go remote. As soon as we hit gravel, we air down the tires. It softens everything out, gives us lots of traction. And of course, we got to air up our tires once we get back to concrete. So that there is pretty much all the tools that we carry with us. It's definitely enough to do any of the major jobs that we would have to do on the van, and I've been really happy with the selection that I've chosen. It's really served me well. I not very often run into a circumstance where I don't have the tool that I'm looking for. Again, I want to reiterate that none of this stuff is mandatory. It is just how we have prepared ourselves for the Pan American Highway. We want to be ready for anything that comes our way. We go to really remote places where there's not a lot of support around, and we need to get ourselves out of situations, fix our own stuff. I am capable of working on our vehicle, which not everyone has that luxury. I just want to pass this information on to those of you who are willing and ready to accept it, and it maybe will help you in some kind of way. Okay. Next on the list of things that we have brought along with us in preparation for the Pan American Highway is our Bluetti AC200L and SP200 power station and solar panels. I will preface this by saying that this is a paid advertisement by Bluetti. We partnered with them recently after a little bit of self-inflicted electrical issues earlier on this summer. If you guys have been with us for a while, you'll know that we had some issues with our onboard electrical system, which meant that we weren't charging our house battery in the van, and we were running out of power really quickly because there was not a lot of sunshine where we were earlier this summer up north. We adopted the portable power station just because Meg and I, we work on the road and require our devices to be powered, of course, so that we can make income while we drive around and explore. If we are always having electrical issues or running out of power or anything like that, then it gets a little bit scary for us because we can't make income. So this is another peace of mind item that we're bringing with us. The Bluetti AC200L is a 40 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. It has a 2400 watt inverter in it. As well, you can charge your devices using USB-A, USB-C. There are 4 120 volt ports right here. This unit can be charged using just the cigarette lighter plug in your vehicle while you're driving. It can be plugged into a 120 volt AC receptacle in a wall, or you can unfold these babies. This is a 200 watt solar panel and you can charge this using solar, which is really fantastic. Having this has opened up a few new possibilities for us. We can now work outside and charge our devices. So if there's a park bench or like a picnic table or something like that, we can set this up, plug in our computers and our phones and charge while we're working. But I also think that these are really great for those of you who are starting out on your van life journey and don't really know much about permanent electrical in your van, and you just need power in your vehicle. Make sure to check out the affiliate link that we have in our description below if you're looking to get yourself a Bluetti AC200L or SP200 solar panel. Thanks, Bluetti. All right, guys, now as promised, the more admin part of preparing for the Pan American Highway, which Meg is far better at that kind of thing. So we're gonna talk a little bit about communication, safety, documents, foodstuffs, and stuff like that. So Meg, you can take it away from here.
So one thing that's really important as we travel abroad through all these different countries is communication, not only so that we can feel safe and secure, but also for our family and friends who want to know that we are also safe and alive. So the first thing that we have on board that we have switched on almost all of the time when we are near the van is Starlink. So this is our main mode of communication. It's internet, and we can call our friends, FaceTime our family, and just stay in touch in case anything happens. Like say, for instance, we get stuck and we can't get out, we can send out a message to whoever can help us out of the situation.
And this has attributed to our confidence in going to remote places in the past already. You know, we've found ourselves stuck in a rut out in Nevada, and I didn't really think anything of it because it's so easy to call out. Same thing for the Talquah Pass, like we can just call people to come and help if we need it. And Starlink has been really, really reliable thus far. So it's a big expense, and for us it's a work expense. But you know, there's the Mini out now, and I think it's fairly affordable, and it's a huge game changer for traveling to really remote places.
The next thing is my iPhone. So we don't have a Garmin InReach that we take with us on outdoor adventures, and most outdoor adventures are out of cell phone reception. However, the new iPhones actually have the same technology embedded in them as the Garmin InReach. So when we are out of service on a hike, I can switch on the satellite feature on my iPhone, and we can get in touch or send out an emergency message to the people that are listed in my contacts and the local emergency authority should anything happen when we're on an outdoor adventure.
And lastly, for communication, we do carry a set of radios with us. Now this is mainly for if we're in a convoy with other people. It just means that not all of us need cell phones or working cell phone plans. Yeah, we just carry a set of CB or GMRS, I think, radios with us. And that just allows us to stay in communication with the other people that we're with while we're driving.
One more thing actually is we're currently thinking about signing up with an eSIM company. That will give us data plans on our cell phones, which we don't currently have. When we travel into Mexico and further south, we are planning for the security of the van to do all of our errands in a divide and conquer kind of way. So when I'm out grocery shopping, I'll be doing that alone, and Alex will stay in the van, and vice versa. If we need any parts or what have you, Alex will go into the hardware store, the automotive store, and I'll stay with the van, just to minimize the likelihood of getting broken into while we're in these different countries. Now, obviously we could get broken into in the US. We're a little less cautious here for no real good reason, but in Mexico and beyond, we're gonna take all the extra precautions that we can including some extra locking mechanisms.
Beautiful segue, my dear. So we have put in a few extra little mechanisms to keep our van doors locked. They're just really basic manual locking systems that can only be done from the inside of the van. So right here in the door, I'll show you some B-roll of it. We've got a, just like kind of this latch that latches onto the inside of the door, so no one can pull the door open, even if they punch the locks. The same thing goes for the back doors. We have just a very, very simple latch that just flips over and makes the doors incapable of opening. I haven't figured out a method of doing so for the front two doors. Hopefully I figure something out eventually. But in addition to that, we're also going to tint our driver and passenger windows when we get down into Mexico, so people can't as easily look into the cab of the vehicle. It also keeps it cooler. As well, we have window coverings that go over our windows when we leave the van. This is just kind of a out of sight, out of mind principle for vehicle safety. Those are just some very simple, inexpensive things that we have done to just increase safety, mitigate any kind of theft. All right, so the next thing is travel insurance. Now, I know this is a massive question mark for so many nomads out there, and it's a really, really hard question to answer. We've had friends that have done the Pan American Highway ahead of us, and they have opted out of travel insurance simply because getting medical attention is so much easier and cheaper when you cross south of the US border. So Meg has had some stuff in the past that has happened while she's been traveling that has really informed her on whether or not she wants travel insurance, and she definitely does. And I think that we have actually answered the question of travel insurance for nomads, and Meg is going to tell you all about that.
Yeah, so a few years ago when I was in Australia, I had to be rushed into a surgery to get an emergency appendectomy. Now, luckily, I had travel insurance and it was completely covered. So that was a huge stress relief because my bill was over $10,000 in that scenario. The only thing I will say about that experience was that it was a total pain to deal with my insurance company, and it was so incredibly stressful when I was in the hospital trying to get their sign off to pay for the surgery I was headed into. Having said that, we are a little bit apprehensive to travel without travel insurance, and my mom, namely, is as well. Shout out Pam. So I ended up searching high and low for a better travel insurance option than what's currently out there. A couple of the restraining factors that I don't like about traditional travel insurance companies is that you have to know when you're crossing the borders, you have to sign up prior to leaving your home country, which we already are, and it's quite expensive, and it's really hard to get any support or communication out of these companies if you are in a bad situation. So I found a company called SafetyWing, and they have a totally new approach to travel insurance that is geared towards nomads like us who are traveling abroad for an extended amount of time, crossing multiple borders, and who don't necessarily know when their trip is going to end or if it's going to extend past that calendar year that most travel insurance companies restrict you by. So with SafetyWing, we get all of the same benefits as your typical travel insurance. So in an emergency situation, should you incur any illness or health issues, you are able to get care, say in a hospital setting. With SafetyWing, they work on a subscription basis, which makes it so much easier for travelers like us. They cover across 185 different countries, and your policy renews every 4 weeks. So you pay monthly, essentially, or every 4 weeks. It's quite affordable. It rolls over month to month, and then if you do go over that year, which we will, we're gonna be probably traveling south of the border for about 18 months, you can automatically and easily renew your policy to carry over into the second year of travel. I really love this offering because they have a super user-friendly website, a super user-friendly app, and you can get 24/7 support on the app. So if you are ever in a situation where you need medical attention, it's super easy to just get on the app and ask the team at SafetyWing any questions that you might have. The other cool add-on that we are signing up for is electronics theft coverage. So if somebody does get into the van and our laptops and our camera is inside and gets stolen, SafetyWing can reimburse us each up to $3,000 USD based on what was stolen and the dollar value. So yeah, we're super stoked to be using SafetyWing this trip.
Much like Starlink was a game changer for digital nomads, now Nomad travel insurance is another huge game changer for those of us who live in our vehicles and roam around. And I think so many people are going to be absolutely stoked to know that they can be covered while they're traveling around outside of their country. And I think it'll really give people the ease or willingness or confidence to travel outside of the United States and Canada. Thank you very much, SafetyWing, for providing a fantastic service. Now that we've talked a little bit about health insurance, we just want to touch shortly on our first aid kit. So I bought this a long time ago from a company called Outer Limits Supply, and it's one of their kind of like medium to smaller kits, but it has everything to deal with minor to medium severity injuries. So lacerations, contusions, headaches, some allergy stuff. It comes pretty well packed with everything that we need to really deal with any kind of oopsie on the road. And this is something that I highly recommend bringing with you, especially if you have a mother who will kill you if you don't. So to our moms, Ruth and Pam, we have a first aid kit that will be able to patch us up if we ever have any kind of bad injury.
We also have a lightweight first aid kit that we bring on hikes with us after having an experience where Alex sliced his finger open on the drone propeller. We didn't have our first aid kit with us at that time because we were just doing a quick hike and we thought, oh well. But ever since that experience, we carry our small lightweight first aid kit that has bandages and gauze and antiseptic inside, just in case we get any cuts and scrapes that need cleaning up while we're on the top of a mountain, say.
So let's quickly now move into documentation. Now this one is another big one. Obviously we're going to be crossing something like 16 or 17 different borders, all of which have a slightly different variation of border crossing process. And there's a lot of paperwork flying around, and this is how we have prepared for that.
Yeah, so we have prepared this based on the wisdom of travelers that we know that have done the Pan American Highway. And one thing that everyone says is make sure you copy all of your important documents and bring multiple copies of those documents with you in an organized way for the border crossings and for any situations where you might need to show these things to police or government officials. So essentially what's in here is about 20 copies each of our passports, our driver's license, and our vehicle title and registration, all of which we could need at all the border crossings. Now, the words of wisdom that we heard from other travelers is that where possible, give copies of your official documents. Do not give your official document. A lot of times at the border, or a police officer might stop you and want to take your license or take your passport. That is not an ideal situation. If possible, give them the copies, is what we've heard, and do not let anybody walk away with your passport or driver's license. So that's why we have all these copies, and we keep this folder in the cab with us for crossing borders, because at each border crossing, as Alex said, the process is a little bit different and the paperwork will be a little bit different. So we have sections of this folder that will house all of our visas and copies of those visas for when we exit the country and enter into a new country, as well as any receipts and that kind of thing that that border agents may need documentation of when we're crossing. And
as well, vehicle. I think you said, did you say vehicle insurance? Yeah. So yeah, that's just one thing to kind of keep everything in line. Those crossings, from what we've heard, can be very long and arduous, and just having an organized approach to it will lower the level of stress, hopefully.
Hopefully.
All right, so now is Meg's very favorite part, food and water.
In terms of water, we have a filtration system built into our water storage here. And that just gives us peace of mind. Although most of the time we will be filling up at reliable water sources that we likely have to pay for. I mean, in Mexico, we have to pay for them. I'm not sure what happens beyond. If we did ever get into a situation where we didn't really trust where we were filling up, or we had to fill up in nature in an emergency, we do have a water filtration system. And so we have peace of mind whenever we're drinking water from the van.
And just on the technical side, it's just a 2-stage water filtration system. It's got 5 micron charcoal filter and then a 0.02 micron medical grade filter. And we've brought a lot of extra filters with us just in case we have to change those out.
Yeah.
So we should be good on the waterfront.
And now my favorite topic, all of the food that I'm stockpiling as we cross the border into Mexico. I want to preface this by saying I'm super excited to cross into Mexico and beyond and really immerse ourselves in the food culture and be really creative and challenged with what I can make based on what I can find at the local markets. However, leaving North America, I do have a few creature comforts and things that I just love that I know I'm gonna miss down south. So I'm going to fill the van completely with those things just so that I can stretch my North American preferences a little bit further. The first thing is coffee. I will be stocking the van with about 6 months worth of coffee to last us until we leave Mexico. Now, if anyone's been to Mexico or spent any significant amount of time there, you'll know that Mexican coffee is not great. Now, we have found some good coffee in cafes. However, it's largely terrible.
And this is entirely based on our personal experience.
And the experiences of
Yeah.
our countless friends that travel through Mexico. And
If you guys have
the same-
suggestions for coffee, feel free to share them.
Yeah,
honestly.
absolutely. I'm gonna be packing a lot of good beans with us because we love our morning cup of coffee,
Yes, we do.
and it's gonna be a sad day if we run out in Mexico and we can't find any other good beans. Next are some dry goods that I'm gonna stock up on. First is organic flour, which I hadn't found in Baja, so we'll see if I can find it down in Mexico. My sourdough starter, Chad, really appreciates organic, high quality flour. So I'm gonna be packing a bunch of flour so I can bake to my heart's content. Some of the other dry goods that I'm gonna be bringing with us are Asian style noodles, basmati rice, organic Italian pasta. All these things are just hard to come by. Well, in our experience, have been super hard to come by down south, and they're non-perishable, so I can totally stock our pantry and it will last for a very long time. And then the last thing are perishable items. Now, we don't have a freezer on board, so I am kind of limited to how much I can bring in terms of food that needs to be refrigerated. But a few things that I'll be stocking up on are quality meat. I've historically been a little nervous to buy meat in Mexico because I already have a little bit of a thing with buying meat, and the communication barrier and the differences in storing the meat in the stores is just like a little frightening for me. So I'll be packing some good quality meats, good cheese. We love a good Swiss cheese or Parmesan cheese, so the fridge will definitely be full of those. And then last is tofu. It was really hard to come by any tofu in Baja, and so I'm anticipating the same down in mainland Mexico, so I'll be stocking the fridge with lots of tofu as well.
So that pretty much wraps up all of our personal preparations. We are probably going to learn a lot more as we...
Definitely, not probably.
Definitely going to learn a lot more as we travel further south. We are just giving you guys what we have done, and we're going to be learning more. And we might be wrong on a lot of this stuff. We are totally open to being kindly corrected, and we are humble and willing to recognize our mistakes in any of this information. If you guys do have any great suggestions, feel free to leave those in the comment section below. And as we travel south, we will definitely fill in the information that we glean as we travel more and become more knowledgeable travelers. So with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, we hope that this has helped you in some kind of way. And until the next one, keep on roaming. Later.